This is in continuation of the series on ISO 27001, that is the Information Security Management System. Importance of the ISMS, importance of the information security, and how the international standards ISO 27001 has been developed and what is the purpose. This is the third session, the first one being an introduction, and second we started with what exactly the organization's context and how it should be there. Now in this session, gradually there are 10 clauses are there in this 27001, and we'll be discussing all the 10 clauses in detail in the first 3 or 4 sessions, and after that what are the requirements to establish this one, 27001 also we'll be discussing in detail. Like I said, we also conduct the training programs on this. You can see the description in the window. What are the schedules for our training and all that also you can see. Okay, and of course you can also ask the questions through email and WhatsApp. We'll be answering that. So now continuing with this session number 3 in the 27001 series. Today we'll be in detail discussing about the management and what are the important role of the management that is required to play, and how they have to plan the information security management system establishment. Okay, I already touched the subject leadership, what is the importance of the leadership and why a leadership means for an organization. I'll give some more insight to the leadership. One should understand the leadership is the one who takes the overall responsibility. In any organization, the overall responsibility is the duty of the top management, who takes the decisions, who is financially committed and organizationally committed, operationally committed, and the implementation of the statutory other requirements also there, including the customer requirements also it is committed. So in the leadership you have to make sure that you understand all the requirements of the customer, all the requirement of the statutory, all the requirement of your employees and other associated partners and interested partners. Then you start working on that. That commitment should be a starting point for information security management. First, let us see how you wanted to start your information security establishment. The important thing is you should start with a policy. Your policy is a reflection of your ideas and your ideology of your organization. So your policy should give the information to whosoever is associated that you are interested in establishing the policy that will ensure the secrecy, security of your information. And associated with the policy, what you need to do is you have to establish the objectives. Objectives are nothing but the path or the derivatives through which you achieve your policy. So when you establish a policy, you may have more than 3, 4 or 5 objectives are there. Individually, the department wise, the functional wise or various sources, you have to create a objectives. For example, let me tell you, in information security, hacking is one issue is there, which is a very common disease for any organization. It may be minimum physical hacking, physical theft, or through computerized program. So how you wanted to protect that? In the particular thing, how particular department, how you wanted to ensure that, what is the objective? Your hacking should be totally zero, approachable to any hacker. That should be your objective, for which you make a studies and what are the sources that are likely to impact your hacking. So these are all the things you have to study and you have to create an objective. Another thing is that administrative controls or access controls. How you wanted to establish the access controls to whom, and what are the leakages that may likely to happen, the piracies. These are all the other departments where you can have your objectives like a zero error or kind of a situation. So that way you have to create objectives based on your policies for each functional area. Once you have the policy associated with the objectives, where you take a commitment as a top management or the leadership, then you ensure that what are the processes for carrying out these activities. They are called the organizational processes, which you take the requirements into the consideration and create a processes for which a flow chart is required to be drawn to the micro level and macro level. Then you can easily understand the requirements of both customers, statutory bodies and your employees also. Once you organize your whatever the management systems into a particular process, taking the requirements into the consideration. Then as a leadership, as a top management, it becomes your responsibility to ensure that resources are provided. Resources in sense, taking the hardware resources, software resources, and knowledge resources. Normally we can divide the resources into three parts. Like normally we say the human resources, infrastructural resources, environmental resources. But again we can subclassify the things, human resources, actual hardware providers and software providers and knowledge providers, knowledge-based providers. So whatever the classification, you have to make sure that each activity is fulfilled with the required resources. Once you know what are the resources, you provide the resources, then you can start your process. And another important in the leadership is once you establish your processes, you have the resources. Each and every employee and associated persons with your organization, he needs to know what you are doing. So communication is most important thing here. So communication is such an important thing. Without communication, organization will not run. So what is your intentions, how you wanted to achieve the targets, how you wanted to achieve the objectives. Each employee and each associated interested parties should be aware of your communication interests. So that is how you have to establish a channel for the communication. You know, these days you have a various type of a communication, but make sure that all your communication is authentic and with integrity, that it cannot be changed in the process. You know, once I talk something and you listen something, you tell something, ultimately if I ask the 10th person when my communication, it will be totally aberrated and it will be different. That should not be a process. So communication should have its own integrity. That means it should intent and as well as the letter and spirit should not be changed even if it passes 3 or 4 channels. That is the way you have to establish your communication channel. Not simply WhatsApp or social media or email and all. You have to make sure that your communication is intact, received by the intended person without any aberration. Once you establish that communication and you inform your all the employees the importance of the information security, then you have to make sure that whatever the outcome, the goals you decide. The goals may be related to the customer, goals may be related to your own organizational development or state of art technology, or your goals may be related to the simply statutory. If you are only one of the intermediary doing this one, in intermediary in information also it's important how you exercise your control. These are all the things you have to establish. And then you have to have a policy of directing the people, how to control the people, how to make the people to understand what are their controls so that information, total security will be effective and it will not be having any problem. That is another leadership activity that a top management is required to do it. Then once you are satisfied that you have established the system, you got a resources and you have a people well aware of the things, we require resources are there, then you make a process for the continuous